The Han tribe flourishes, achieving milestones in agriculture, paper production, and infrastructure. However, the shadow of the cannibal tribes looms large. Yu Ye's reconnaissance reveals a sprawling network of cannibal villages at the foot of the snow mountains, numbering in the tens of thousands, but the whereabouts of the terrifying giant apes remain a mystery. A successful Labor Day celebration boosts morale and accelerates the tribe's transition towards private ownership, necessitating the urgent development of a currency system. The protagonist grapples with multiple challenges: establishing a buy, school and training officials, designing a secure currency resistant to Sin tribe interference, and creating teaching materials, including a magnifying glass made from crystal for future coin and printmaking. The discovery of a sulfur spring hints at potential future advancements, while the ever-present threat of the cannibals and the unknown role of the giant apes create an atmosphere of suspense. The episode ends on the making of the magnifying lens, with the protagonist ready to use it to tackle future problems. Ha ha ha, that's right. This thing is used to magnify things, but it only makes them look bigger. It doesn't actually enlarge the physical object, like your hand. It looks bigger through this tool, but without it, it's back to its original size, you explained. Chief, what's this thing called? And what can it actually be used for? If it only makes things look bigger, it doesn't seem very useful. If only it could turn a bowl of rice into a real big bowl of rice, that would be great. Just making it look bigger is frustrating. Big Mouth suddenly felt that this magical thing wasn't very useful after all. That's a unique idea. But there's no such thing as a free lunch. Even if there were, it would probably be poisoned. Food is grown. If you could just use this magnifying glass to make it bigger, then who would bother working? Everyone would just be making magnifying glasses. This tool, called a magnifying glass, isn't as useless as you say. You said it yourself. It can magnify things, allowing us to see them more clearly. That alone is very useful. Think about it. If I asked you to cast a bronze vessel with extremely fine patterns, but you couldn't see them clearly, what would you do? But if you had a magnifying glass, it would be different. You could use it to carve the mold. Wouldn't you be able to see more clearly and even see smaller details? Oh, and this magnifying glass has another use. It can concentrate the sunlight into a single point. The temperature at that point is very high. Although it can't melt metal, it can ignite wood shavings. So with just this magnifying glass on a sunny day, you can use it to start a fire, you further explained to the group. What? This thing can draw down heavenly fire? An apprentice exclaimed. In their minds, heavenly fire was the fire caused by lightning striking trees, but they had never heard of trees spontaneously combusting from sunlight. Hearing you say that, this transparent disc could draw down heavenly fire. They all felt it was incredible. No, not heavenly fire, but the sun's light. When you're out in the sun in the summer, don't you feel hot? Like you're being roasted by fire? You asked. They nodded in agreement. Right. That means sunlight has temperature. Sunlight can heat things up, right? You continued to guide their thinking. The group thought about it, and it made sense, so they nodded again. This magnifying glass can concentrate the sunlight shining on it into a very small point. That is, the temperature of that sunlight is also concentrated into one point, so this point becomes extremely hot, hot enough to ignite wood, you concluded. But the group still only half understood, their faces displaying expressions of bewilderment. Clearly, the issue of light refraction was beyond their everyday thinking. Okay, like this. It's the afternoon now, and the sun is at its hottest. Let's take this magnifying glass and experiment with how to start a fire, and then you'll understand. You proposed. The group instantly became excited. This was drawing down heavenly fire. Was the chief inviting them to witness a miracle? What an honor. Big Mouth immediately grabbed a few pieces of firewood, and the other two apprentices scooped up a handful of charcoal, excitedly following you outside the workshop. Hey, are you planning to have a bonfire outside or maybe cook something? Aren't you afraid of the heat? Why are you taking so much firewood? Just a small piece of wood would be enough, you said, face-palming, speechless. The group then awkwardly dropped the things in their hands, leaving only Big Mouth holding a piece of charcoal and a stick of firewood. Under the scorching sun, well into the afternoon at the hottest time of the day, you rubbed some charcoal on the firewood, blackening it, since black absorbs heat better, right? Then, under the watchful eyes of the group, you began to manipulate the magnifying glass. Holding the magnifying glass at an angle, you aimed it at the sun and adjusted the focal length up and down. The group quickly saw that, as you moved the magnifying glass, a bright spot of light immediately appeared in the shadow on the ground. This spot was large and bright, but as you lowered the magnifying glass, the spot began to shrink, becoming even brighter. When it shrunk to the size of a soybean, the light spot was at its brightest, impossible to look at directly without feeling a stinging pain in the eyes and causing tears to flow. Don't stare directly at it, squint, and look with your peripheral vision, or you'll go blind, you warned them. The group quickly followed your instructions and continued to observe. They saw the chief aim the light spot at the firewood placed on the ground. At first, nothing seemed to happen, but in less than a minute, the blackened wood began to emit gray smoke. It's lit. It's lit. There's smoke. There's smoke. The heavenly fire has been drawn down. The chief has drawn down the heavenly fire. One apprentice, disregarding the pain in his eyes, saw smoke rising from where the light spot was shining, and immediately stood up, shouting loudly. This shout attracted the attention of those nearby. People who had nothing to do began to gather around, including Chief Shi, who was supervising the construction site nearby, and the old men, Shaman Shu and Elder Han. It really is lit. It really is lit. Look, the smoke is getting bigger and bigger. Now, if we put a little wood shavings, it'll definitely catch fire with a puff. Big Mouth also began to summarize. What are you doing with the chief? The elder asked, watching the two shouting with tears streaming down their faces. Oh, the chief showed us how to make a tool called a magnifying glass. It can draw down heavenly fire and directly ignite wood. It can also make things look bigger and clearer. It's amazing. Elder, do you want to see? Big Mouth explained. Oh? There's such a tool? What did you say it was called? Shaman Shu also asked. Magnifying glass. With the addition of more people, what followed was even more magical. Several old men and a group of teenagers squatted under the scorching sun, using a magnifying glass to ignite wood and roast ants. Joyful shouts rose and fell, and they didn't seem to feel the heat, making even you feel a little ashamed. Look, these are my managers, acting like a bunch of kindergarten kids. All right, that's enough looking for now. Heavenly fire is harmful to the eyes. You'll all be blind if you stare at it for too long, and then you won't be able to see anything. Seeing them endlessly playing and enjoying themselves, you started to use strong words to urge them on. There was nothing you could do. This thing wasn't made for playing. You intended to use it to carve the wax mold for the coin dies. Without this magnifying glass, how could you carve the fine details? On the coins, this was a genuine micro-carving tool. After finally getting the magnifying glass back from the group of children, you began to prepare for the real work. A single lens couldn't be used on its own. For ease of use, you found a wooden barrel and made a wooden frame, like a tabletop dressing mirror, specifically to hold the magnifying glass. It could also be adjusted freely, making it perfect for carving characters and micro-carvings. Having settled the magnifying glass, another important tool couldn't be overlooked: the various carving knives used for carving. You directly used some discarded arrow shafts, shaping them into various carving knife shapes, and then handed them over to Big Mouth to have someone make them, producing a batch directly. There were so many places where carving knives could be used: carving ceramic clay bodies or wooden products, and the printing blocks for movable type printing, as well as the coin wax molds you wanted to make and seals. There were so many uses for carving knives, and it was impossible for you to do all the carving work yourself, so mass-producing a batch would save trouble in the future. The following days were unremarkable. You taught the students every day, and while they practiced writing, You had to write textbooks or design coin patterns. Then you would take a piece of white plaster and practice carving, sometimes also practicing carving some clay movable type for printing. Later, you felt that carving by yourself was too tedious and slow, and the students were also learning to write, so you simply dragged the 300-plus students to carve clay movable type with you. The clay blanks were all hardened clay ingots after being dried. You would then write the reversed characters on them and distribute them to the students to carve together. At least one of the 8 classes a day was dedicated to this. Otherwise, it would have taken who knows how long. Chief, what are we carving these reversed characters for? Even if we need to use them, shouldn't we carve them the right way around? Wouldn't carving them like this be a waste? You were leaning on the podium, carving characters, when you suddenly heard a student below questioning you. You weren't angry. It was good to have one's own thoughts. If the chief said something, and the people below didn't ask anything, only completing the task, what would be the difference between them and robots? This is called a printing block. It's used for printing characters. It's clay now, so it can't be used. But the reason we're carving it now is because the clay is soft and easy to carve. Once it's fired into a ceramic ingot, it'll be too hard to carve. But it's okay to try it out a little now. Take a character that you finished carving and use your brush to lightly apply some ink to the character. Then, press it onto a piece of white paper. See what happens. You directly instructed him to verify it himself. This was more effective than any explanation. The student, who had previously served as a small team leader in the clan's hunting team, hearing the chief's answer, became curious himself and immediately began to experiment according to your instructions. He took a clay movable type that had already been carved and set aside for half a day, squeezed the ink from his brush until it was half dry, and then brushed it onto the clay movable type. After brushing it all black, he pressed the carved side onto a piece of white paper. The originally blank white paper immediately bore a correctly oriented Han character. Wow! This can print characters. The man's exclamation immediately attracted the attention of those around him. All the classmates turned their heads to look, and the students nearby were immediately amazed by the Han character on the white paper. It really can print characters, but why are we carving them in reverse but the printed ones are the right way around? The students' desk mates, after their amazement, also raised their questions. The student who printed the character, take your paper and your carved character and walk around the class to show everyone. I believe all the students want to know. After you've all seen it, I'll explain it to everyone, you said, sitting on the podium. The students below immediately became agitated. The small team leader who printed the character also took the things he had just made to show to the whole class. And at this moment you had already drawn something like a chessboard on the blackboard with chalk, filled with grids. Thump, thump, thump. After the students below had seen the movable type printing, you tapped on the blackboard above, drawing everyone's attention. Everyone just saw that printed Han character and thought it was amazing. You can make a Han character without using a pen to write. I believe some of you are very happy now, thinking that since we've made this thing, we won't need to write anymore. First made a little joke with them. All the people below burst into laughter, clearly hitting the thoughts of some of them. Thinking about it, what kind of life did these people live before? Now they were actually brought here to learn to write from morning till night. It was simply too uncomfortable. But that's impossible. What we're making now is called movable type printing. This is just the printing block used for printing. You've seen the effect just now. It's used to print characters. Of course, printing one character is useless, but each of you is carving different characters. What if we made all the Han characters? Now, look at this diagram on the blackboard. Do you see many grids and grooves? You can imagine that if we made a wooden or iron plate like this, and then arranged these individual Han characters according to the words we want to say, and then brushed them with ink like before, and used white paper to make a rubbing, wouldn't we be able to directly print a passage of what we want to say? You pointed to the blackboard and explained to them. Wow, that's true. But the chief said this isn't to replace our writing, so what's the use of making this thing? Isn't it just used to print characters? The student who had printed the character asked again. You asked a good question. Actually, you can think about the advantages of this movable type printing compared to writing by hand. This advantage is the reason we're making it. Now I'd like the whole class to answer. Whoever answers correctly after graduation, I can let them be specifically responsible for the printing work of the Han tribe. This is a significant position, so think carefully. You directly tempted them. Chief, I think it's because everyone writes differently. Some people's handwriting is not very good and others may not be able to understand it. But with this movable type printing, we only need to find someone who writes well to write out all the characters and then carve them. Then, when we print in the future, the printed characters will also be beautiful, so that all literate people can understand them. A young man, about 13 or 14 years old, stood up and answered. Very good. You're right. This is indeed an advantage of movable type printing, but it's not entirely comprehensive. It has even better aspects than handwriting. Can you think of them? You looked approvingly at the student. If you remembered correctly, this should be someone who joined from a labor tribe. Previously, their tribe had been working on the new city, working for more than half a year, until this rice harvest, when they officially decided to join the Han tribe. It hadn't even been a month yet. It seemed to be a tribe from south of the new city, a tribe that specialized in making persimmon cakes called the Baiguo tribe. Now they were the Bai clan of the Han tribe. You flipped through the student list on the table, and your finger stopped under a name, Bai Chi, causing the corner of your mouth to twitch involuntarily. Chief, I think this printing should be able to print many times. If someone were to handwrite something once, it would definitely be very tiring. But with printing, you just need to add some ink and print again. So if you want to write a passage many times, using printing would be faster, and each printed copy would be the same. Bai Chi thought for a moment and said again, very good, you're absolutely right. In fact, this is the real purpose of printing, to quickly and massively reproduce the same content. Although handwriting can also do this, it requires too many people and is too slow. But with printing, only 2 or 3 workers can match the copying speed of thousands of people. This is the advantage of printing. You clapped your hands happily, sincerely praising Bai Chi. A group of students suddenly had an aha moment, but some still didn't understand, so they raised another question. Chief, this printing is indeed fast, but why do we need to print so much of the same content? Isn't this a waste of paper? You said that paper is not easy to make. You glanced at the person who spoke, initially wanting to scold him a bit, but you held back and patiently explained it to them again. You are the ones I personally taught to write Han characters. So what do you feel in your hearts? Is learning Han characters good? Is learning Han characters useful? Of course, it's useful. At the very least, Han characters can easily transmit messages and record knowledge and various production methods. This makes it convenient for us to pass it on to future generations. You wouldn't want our good techniques to be lost, causing our descendants to pick up stone spears again and go hunting in the mountains. Would you? You paused and continued. And if we want to spread this knowledge to more people, and more effectively, pass it on to future generations, what is the best way? That is to print this knowledge. We print 100 copies, 1,000 copies, 10,000 copies. There will always be one copy that survives, right? As long as one copy can be passed down, it means our efforts were not in vain. Han characters. Printing? What is the most important thing? It is the dissemination and inheritance of knowledge. Now, I'm teaching 320 of you alone. When you've learned, some of you will become managers, helping me manage the cities below. What will the rest of you do? That is, like what I'm doing now, teaching the knowledge I gave you to others. If each of you teaches more than 100 people, you could teach a whole city in a year, right? Therefore, we must turn knowledge into sheets of Han characters, then sew these papers together to form books, and then print tens of thousands of copies. At that time, anyone who can read can learn knowledge through these books. and then our task of passing on knowledge will be accomplished. Do you understand? You explain to them word by word, emphasizing the important uses of Han characters and printing, hoping that their ideological awareness would be higher. The chief is truly worthy of being the leader of all tribes. Not only does he unreservedly teach important methods of farming and animal husbandry to various clans, but he even thinks ahead for our descendants, hoping to pass on knowledge forever. The chief loves all people as his own, teaches life-saving skills to nurture all living beings, is benevolent to all people, and is destined to be remembered for thousands of generations. We are deeply moved and willing to die for the great Han, willing to work like oxen and horses for the chief, so that all the people of the world can have food when they are hungry, and clothes when they are cold, and no longer suffer from hunger and cold. You stood on the podium, your eyes sweeping over all the students below. When your gaze passed over a certain plant, you gave him an imperceptible signal. This person immediately understood, quickly stood up, and recited the loyalty pledge that you had previously made him memorize. For a time, the whole class was silent, stunned for more than 10 seconds. Just when this plant was about to run out of ideas, everyone in the class stood up and echoed what he had just said. The chief's benevolence extends to the world and moves all people. We are willing to die for the great Han, to work like oxen, and horses for the chief, and to relieve the hunger and cold of all people. The voices of 80 people combined were very loud. The sound spread throughout the entire teaching building, and also floated to the construction site of the office building outside the window, making a group of workers a little confused. What were these literate people doing now? This is what we should do. The Great Han does not discriminate against any clan. All under heaven who look like us are our kind. Since we have the ability to make them live better, why not do it? All right, that's it for today. You continue to carve characters. Remember, every character you carve now is the hope of our knowledge inheritance, so be careful when you work. You coughed twice, pretending to be modest, and then encouraged them again, before ending the question and answer process about Han characters and printing. The students lowered their heads again and continued to carve characters carefully. You went to the window of the classroom and looked out. The sun outside was still scorching, but there were bursts of refreshing, cool breezes. It was late August, and autumn was coming soon. Looking east from the 3rd floor of the teaching building, you could see that the rice paddies outside the city were already a golden yellow. In the past few days, the paddy fields had been drained and dried. In another week or so, when the soil in the paddy fields had hardened, they could start harvesting the 2nd season of rice this year. After the rice was harvested, there probably wouldn't be enough time to plant other grains. But letting the land lie fallow wasn't a good idea, so you decided to let the people plant another crop of lacquer trees this year. That thing grew like a sunflower, but it could produce natural lacquer. Whether it was used to coat wood or make leather armor, it was very useful. Of course, it had another important use. Inside the large sunflower-like flower head on the lacquer tree, many round lacquer seeds would grow, like black beans. Rodents and birds loved to eat them. Even the people of the Chi clan, lacquer tribe, said that this thing could be eaten by people, and they used it as emergency food in winter. Moreover, the yield of this thing was no lower than that of corn, and it could be used as food. In addition, these lacquer beans were rich in oil, and the oil yield was also very high, with the oil content being at least around 35%. It was non-toxic, harmless, and had a fragrant smell. Not only could lacquer bean oil be eaten, but the remaining bean residue cake could also be used as concentrated feed, suitable for raising chickens, cattle, horses, pigs, and sheep. The Han tribe didn't raise fish. Otherwise, it would be no problem to use it to feed fish. But you didn't plan to eat this oil. Instead, you planned to use this lacquer bean vegetable oil to make ink for movable type printing. Oil-based ink has stronger adhesion than water-based ink, especially on smooth surfaces like ceramic movable type, which is most suitable for using oil-based ink. This was also why you chose to plant lacquer trees. But looking at the figures running from downstairs, You knew that your autumn planting plan would have to add new items. The female leader of the Sang tribe had been sent by Dashu. It seemed that in a few days, you would also have to add the planting of mulberry trees. Sericulture, a long-standing agricultural technique, included mulberry tree cultivation, silkworm, breeding, and finally silk spinning technology. It was a complete industry chain. It also had many additional benefits. Once sericulture became widespread, it would be equivalent to giving the Han tribe's chicken-raising industry a vaccine. How? Could you not pay attention to disease prevention? Downstairs, Shuda brought Sang Shu and her entire tribe of more than 170 people into the city gate of Hanyang City, and they were immediately stunned. The sturdy and thick drawbridge, the vermilion-painted solid wood gate, and the towering city tower all showed the strength of the Han tribe. This place looked much more impressive than the two rammed earth-walled markets in the new city, although it was not as large. Section Chief Shu, is this Hanyang City? Sang Chu talked with Shu Da through the translation of her clansmen. Yes. Isn't it written on the city gate, Hanyang? How about it? This place is good, right? Shu Da hadn't been back for half a year either. At this time, he was also very excited to return to Hanyang City, especially in front of these newcomers from the Sang tribe. The pride in his heart was indescribable. However, due to the rapid development of the Han tribe, although he had only been away for a little over half a year, Hanyang City had changed a lot, and even Shu Da himself was almost becoming a newcomer. There are more than 170 people in your tribe. I think it's best to stay in the barracks first. There are double-layered beds there which are just enough for you. Then I'll take you to see the chief and see how the chief arranges accommodation for you. Shu Da thought for a moment and decided, oh good, we'll follow your arrangements. Sang Chu was new to the area, but she had also become acquainted with Shu Da, the soldier leader, in the new city before. Now that she had been brought to Hanyang City, an unfamiliar place, she had no choice but to follow Shu Da's arrangements. Judging from the attitude of the city guards towards Shu Da just now, he should also have a high status here. The Han tribe was so powerful, there was no reason for them to do anything to them, right? Sang Chu comforted herself. A group of people walked on the clean and tidy streets. The streets paved with blue bricks were extremely flat. The paulownia trees and fluorescent willow trees on both sides had not yet grown much. Children playing games could be seen everywhere, chasing leather balls. The adults in the city were also busy with their own affairs, showing a scene of vitality. Following, the straight streets, looking at the rows of blue brick houses on both sides, the group of people from the Sang tribe felt that their eyes were not enough, chattering about the various scenery of Hanyang City. Look, that's a windmill. Inside the house is sawing wood. I saw one in the new city. There are so many big windmills here, a Sang tribe girl called out happily. Wow, look, those houses over there are so tall and there are so many windows. Look, there are people inside, another Sang tribe member exclaimed. The group soon arrived at the barracks originally established in Hanyang City. Although, most of the people had left now. Whenever soldiers completed their missions and returned here, they would also temporarily live here, so it seemed very clean. Here we are. Right now, there may not be enough empty houses in Hanyang City, so you have to live together first. These are double-layered beds. You can sleep on the top and bottom. If it's not enough, you can put the tables over there together and use them as beds. As for meals, it will be arranged uniformly. I'll take you to the elder later to get some animal skins for bedding. Arriving at the clean and tidy barracks, although it seemed a bit simple, these primitive people from the Sang tribe who had never lived in brick houses didn't mind at all. Instead, they thought that the double-layered beds were very magical. They didn't have any dissatisfaction with the environment of the barracks. They excitedly threw their luggage on the beds, and the group immediately automatically allocated, the ownership of the beds showing no signs of fatigue from the days of travel. After settling the people of the Sang tribe, Shu Da took Sang Chu and her translator to find you. They went around and around, and saw many busy people. Some drove ox carts to transport salt ore from outside the city, and others were using two-section trailers to transport processed wood to the construction site in the city. But when Shuda arrived at your house, he couldn't find you, and even Xiaodi wasn't at home. He only saw two naked children squatting under a tree on the side of the street playing with mud. "Hey, have you two seen the chief? Where did he go?" Shuda walked up to the two children and asked. I know. The chief is at the school, teaching those clan leaders to read characters. I even snuck into the school the other day. It's so big inside." One child quickly stood up and said boastfully, but before he could finish, the other child covered his mouth with a muddy hand. "You're so stupid. We can't tell anyone that we went into the school. Did you forget?" Judah looked at the two innocent children and was amused by them. He no longer cared whether they had been inside the school or not, and took Sang-Chu and the translator to the teaching building in the central city area. If he remembered correctly, the four tallest buildings were the school they were talking about. Arriving at the central city area, Shuda was also a little dazed. These tall buildings hadn't been built when he left Hanyang City, and he had no idea what they looked like inside. Now he didn't even know which building the chief was in. But fortunately, the construction site of the office building was nearby, and Shuda directly found Mutong, who was directing the erection of pillars and beams. "Mutong, where's the chief? Which building is he in? I brought the newly joined Sang tribe to meet him." "Ah, Shuda, you haven't been back for a long time. Come to my house for dinner tonight." "Oh right, you're looking for the chief, right? I'll take you there. Otherwise, you'll probably get lost in the building." Mutong was also pleasantly surprised to see this old acquaintance. Although Shuda was a tribal leader before, Mutong of the Shu tribe joined earlier. Before the He Shu tribe came, Mutong was already the head carpenter of the Han tribe, so naturally he couldn't be lower than Shuda. The two had always been on equal footing. "All right, but don't blame me for eating too much and eating your kids. Share too. By the way, why are you building houses with wood again? The foundation is so high. Weren't the brick houses you built before good enough?" Hey, the chief requested it. You'll see when it's finished. It's much better looking than the teaching building." The few of them talked and entered a teaching building, climbing up the stairs on one side, surprising Shu Da and Sang Chu so much that they didn't know which leg to step with. "You're putting the stairs from the city wall inside the house. Are these wooden ones strong enough?" Shu Da asked in surprise. Hey, what's the big deal? The three of you could jump on the stairs together and it wouldn't matter. What are you afraid of? Come with me. The chief is usually on the third floor. I don't know why he likes to stay in high places so much." Mutong also smiled and explained, pulling the few of them up the stairs. Sang-Q and the translator followed behind, whispering to each other. "The Han tribe is so amazing. Were these houses really made by humans? At first I thought I had arrived at the place where the gods lived. They can actually come up with such a magical method, allowing people to walk into houses taller than trees." The translator carefully grasped the handrail of the stairs, sighing as she climbed. "Don't say things like that anymore. We have all joined the Han tribe now, and we are the people of the Han tribe. This is also our tribe's residence. We'll get used to it slowly. There are too many amazing things in the Han tribe. And the chief. Is it about weaving cloth with wool and weaving cloth with silk? I haven't seen them yet." Sang-Chu also sighed. The 3 floors were not very high, and the group soon arrived at the door of a classroom on the 3rd floor. The door was not closed. Anyway, there were not many people in the whole building, and with the door open, the room could be cooler. Mutong led the group to stand at the door, and immediately saw dozens of students carving clay in the room, and you standing by the window, smiling and watching them. Now there was no need to knock on the door. It turned out that the chief had known they were coming. "Mutong, if you're not busy, go back to work. Shuda, you come with me to the next classroom to talk." You, who had been waiting by the window for a while, saw them come up, and directly left the classroom and said to them, "You led the group to an adjacent classroom and found seats." Only then did the group have a chance to take a good look at the whole picture of the classroom. Rows of neat wooden tables and chairs, 2 blackboards on the front and back walls that took up half the wall, and a teacher's desk on the podium. Neat and clean. Sang-kyu sat down a little uneasily on the stool. She was still a little uncomfortable with such a luxurious place in the Han tribe, and she didn't know what this place was for. She was also a little nervous facing you, the chief, with real power. After all, compared with their Sang tribe, the Han tribe was too rich. Have the people of your clan been settled? You asked in a peaceful tone. Oh, Chief, I temporarily placed them in the barracks. I came here to ask you how you plan to arrange them, Shuda replied. Well, what do you think of Hanyang City? You had no intention of placing the Sang clan here in Hanyang City, but had other arrangements. The reason you asked this now was to hear Sang-kyu's attitude and thoughts. After all, they came for the Han tribe. It would be inappropriate to kick them out and rebuild a base before they even had a chance to settle down. Chief, I think Hanyang City is very good. If we can live here in the future, our people will be very happy. I promise they will work very hard and will definitely complete the tasks assigned by the chief, Sang-kyu replied quickly. But the meaning of her words was also obvious. She wanted to stay in Hanyang City. You thought so? Well, I'll be honest with you, you should have seen Hanyang City when you came. It is indeed much better built than the new city, but it is indeed not as large as the new city. And now there is no extra vacant land in Hanyang City to build houses. So if you want to live in Hanyang City, I can only let some of the residents of the city move out, so that you have houses to live in. You spread your hands and said. The translator was stunned when she heard you say this. She didn't expect you to be such a person. You clearly said before that as long as they joined the Han tribe, they could move to Hanyang City to live. Now they had demolished their homes, didn't want anything, and traveled so far to come to Hanyang City. What did you, the chief, mean? There was no place for them to live? Sang-kyu didn't understand Chinese very well, so she didn't quite understand. But seeing that her translator didn't tell her, she didn't know what was going on, so she secretly pulled her translator. What did the chief say? Why didn't you tell me? Chief, the chief of the Han tribe. Shut up. Do you want to kill us? Now that we have joined the Han tribe, he is our chief now. Our chief. Don't call me chief anymore, remember? Sang-kyu whispered and sternly reprimanded. Yes, clan leader. The chief said that there are no houses for us to live in Hanyang City. If we want to stay here, we can only move some of the people living in the city out. The translator whispered aggrievedly. This, Sang-kyu didn't know how to answer for a while. She didn't know what you meant. When you were looking at the insects in the new city, didn't you show great interest in their tribe? No, you should be very interested in their silkworms. Then why are you so indifferent to them now, since Hanyang City couldn't accommodate them? Why didn't you just leave them in the new city? Although the new city was not as well built as here, it wasn't much worse in comparison. The key was that the place was large, and even if 10 more Sang tribes came, there would definitely be a place to live. Does the chief mean that we have to move to another place to live? Sang-kyu didn't understand what you were thinking, so she tentatively asked. You didn't answer directly, but went to the podium in front, drew a sketch of the terrain around Hanyang City on the blackboard with chalk, and then turned to Sang-kyu and asked, You raise silkworms. Do you know if there are other insects similar to silkworms that also eat leaves and spin cocoons? Other insects? Spinning cocoons? Sang-kyu didn't get your answer, but heard your question instead and couldn't help but be stunned. She really didn't know this. Yes, there are other insects. By the way, can you read maps? If you can't, I can teach you. Come here and take a look. You called the group over and pointed to the blackboard. This is Hanyang City, where we are now. This is the river east of the city. These are the farmlands on both sides of the river. Can you understand? Sang-kyu followed your guidance and looked at the map, then looked at the city wall, farmland, and river outside the window and seemed to understand a little. Then she nodded slightly, hesitantly. She still didn't understand what you were saying now. Forget it. I'll just point it out to you outside the window. Looking at Sang-Chu nodding, but with a blank and confused expression on her face you couldn't believe she could understand. Look at the river outside the city. You came from that wooden bridge, right? You stood by the window and pointed east. This time Sang-Chu finally understood and nodded quickly. Past the wooden bridge, a day's walk south, there is a chestnut forest. Chestnuts are a kind of fruit with a hard shell. They are delicious and easy to store. There should be a kind of silkworm that specifically eats chestnut leaves, called the chestnut silkworm. Chestnut silkworms are about the same size as silkworms, but they are green and have fleshy spines on their bodies. They can also spin silk and make cocoons like silkworms. It's not impossible for you to raise silkworms here, but there are no mulberry trees in Hanyang City. Even if you plant them now, it will take at least a year or two for the mulberry trees to grow large enough to be used to collect leaves for raising silkworms, right? You asked again. Hearing you say this, Sang-Chu and the translator also understood what you meant. That's right. The Han tribe didn't have sericulture as a production project, so there were no mulberry trees, and there weren't even any wild ones nearby. Then how could they raise silkworms here? Even if they planted trees now, it would take 2 years, as the chief said. But what would they do for these 2 years? With this question in mind, and based on what you said, that there was a kind of green silkworm not far away, Sang-Chu and the translator also roughly understood what you meant. You wanted them to plant mulberry trees first, and then raise other silkworms for these 2 years? Does the chief mean that we should go to the other side of the river to raise that kind of green silkworm? Sang-Chu asked tentatively. No, not raise. I think there must be chestnut silkworms there, and that forest is very large. If there are chestnut silkworms, there must be a lot of them. I want you to first collect some wild chestnut silkworm cocoons and bring them back to Hanyang City to experiment with silk reeling and spinning and weaving silk cloth. If it is successful, we can then raise them artificially and expand the scale. In addition, I plan to build another city near the chestnut forest on the other side of the river. It will be larger than Hanyang City, close to the riverbank, to reclaim paddy fields, grow grain, and control the surrounding paulownia and chestnut forests. It will mainly produce grain, chestnuts, silk, and tung oil. I want your Sang clan to move there. At this stage, you will be mainly responsible for the construction of the new city and the collection and breeding experiments of chestnut silkworms. I don't know if you are willing? You looked at Sang-Chu and her translator and asked. Hearing you say this, Sang-Chu, the translator, and Shu-Da were all stunned. You were going to build another new city. Chief, are we going to build a new city this year? Shu-Da asked bluntly. Yes. First find a good place, clear the land, and then build the city wall. The inside will be built after the spring of next year. You don't have to worry about this. The more people our tribe has now, the better it will be to develop. First, occupy more land so that we can plant more food. With food, we are even less worried about the population problem, you explained. Simply, and then looked at Sang-Chu and the translator. Chief, you mean you want us to build a new city? A new city bigger than this Hanyang City? Sang-Chu asked in disbelief. You do need to participate, but not just yourselves. There will be many other clansmen participating. After all, you don't know how to build, so you can only learn from everyone first. And I just said that I want your Sang clan to move to the new city. Not to say that you will move this year, but to wait until the houses are built next year. This is also to facilitate your breeding of chestnut silkworms. As for the mulberry trees, you can plant them here in Hanyang City first this year, and then transplant the saplings when the city is built. It's no problem, you explained to them. Sang, you listened to your explanation and thought about it seriously. Now that they had joined the Han tribe, they were under someone else's roof. What else could they do but follow the chief's orders? Anyway, there would be no good outcome. Besides, the current situation was indeed as you said. If they didn't agree to this arrangement, they really wouldn't be able to do anything for a year or two. But what about the silkworm eggs they brought? This time, Chief, we can agree to your arrangements and are very willing to build the new city with everyone. It's just, What about the silkworm eggs we brought this time? If we had known there were no mulberry trees here, we wouldn't have brought them. Now that we've brought them, they can't survive. It's such a pity, Sang-Q said with some regret. No, it's not a pity. Silkworms can be raised without mulberry leaves. They eat other tree leaves and can still spin cocoons. It's just that after they become moths, they can't produce offspring. You can raise this batch of silkworms first. In another year or two, when the mulberry trees here can be used, you can go back and collect another batch of silkworm eggs. Otherwise, you'll be idle. Anyway, so just raise them first. It can be like this? Sang-Q and the translator were stunned when they heard this. These were things they didn't know. How did the chief know? But thinking of the scene when they first met you, they were no longer surprised. Without such ability and insight, could he be the leader of such a large tribe? Then we will follow the chief's arrangements, Sang-Q immediately stated. Well, your timing is perfect. In a few days, the rice outside the city will be harvested. You newcomers can also help, and you can also learn how to farm first. When you are assigned to live in other cities in the future, you can also be self-sufficient. Now, you can live in the barracks first. This is the only way this year. Later, I will have someone take you to see the weaving workshop in Hanyang City to see how we weave cloth. Then I will transfer some of your women to learn. When you weave silk cloth yourself, don't be ignorant of how to use the machines. You continue to arrange. Yes, we will follow the chief's arrangements, Sang-Q replied immediately. You nodded, walked out of the classroom, called a student from the next room to lead Sang-Q to visit the weaving workshop. This could also dampen their spirits first. Don't think that raising silkworms and making silk clothes is very impressive. Look at the textile technology of the Han tribe. You're nothing, just follow and learn honestly. After Sang-Q and the translator left, only Shuda and you were left in the room. Now Shuda could no longer hold back and quickly asked you for confirmation. Chief, are we really going to build another new city this year? What, can I make false statements about such a big thing? And not just one new city. My plan is two. One in the chestnut forest on the east bank of the river, and one in the valley, to the north. Both of these must be built before the end of next year. As you spoke, you came to the podium again, drew 2 circles on the sketch, and marked the locations of the 2 new cities. But Chief, where are we going to get so many people? The new city is not full yet, and now we are building 2 more cities. We may not even have enough people to do the construction. We'll have people soon. In the spring of next year, the more than 4,000 people from the 2 tribal alliances in the north will move south. If you don't make plans in advance, when thousands of people come to your home, there will be no place to live, no food to eat, and you will really be dumbfounded. We are now laying a good foundation in advance, so that when they come, it will be faster for them to build. It is always better to be prepared in advance than to be in a hurry, you said helplessly, spreading your hands. There was no other way but to be in such a hurry. After all, it was the initial stage of construction. Where wasn't there a need for people? But this was also good. You had built the phoenix tree. Were you afraid that you wouldn't attract a phoenix? To live in it. With good houses, wouldn't there be people who would come even if it was free? Of course, as long as you admit that you are the people of the Han tribe and follow the chief's arrangements. Shuda thought about it, and it was indeed the case. After all, he still had soldiers under his command following the 2 alliances. So of course he knew that 4,000 people were coming next year. According to what you just said, if 4,000 people suddenly poured into Hanyang City, it was unimaginable what kind of chaos would occur. The chief was truly far-sighted. Then, Chief, what are these 2 new cities called? They can't all be called New City, right? There are already 3 new cities? Shuda thought for a moment, looked at the map sketch on the blackboard, and raised another question. Well, I've thought about the names. We are Hanyang County. The new city in the valley to the north is just a county seat under the jurisdiction of Hanyang County. In addition, I chose to build a city there mainly to rely on the terrain of the Valley Pass, and build a city wall to guard against the attacks of the cannibals. After all, our current strength is not enough to annihilate them all. We can only Choose a defensive posture. So this is both a county seat and a pass. And because we have captured wild horses there, I plan to call this county seat Fuma Pass, you said, writing 3 hand characters on the map in the position of the valley. In addition, there is this new city near the Chestnut Forest and Paulownia Forest on the east bank of the river. This is a new county, on the same level as Hanyang City. In the future, other county seats will also be expanded around it. This county is bounded by the river, opposite Hanyang County across the river, Aihai. Plan to call this county Ruyang County. You wrote 3 more characters on the map on the blackboard. Then there is the new city that you and Dashu are guarding now. There are already 2 connected markets here, but it is said to be a market, but it is actually larger than Hanyang City, and it will continue to expand in the future. So this is also a large county, on the same level as Hanyang County and Ruyang County, called Liuyang County. The 2 existing markets in Liuyang County are connected, so according to the township level, the one in the north is called Lindsay Township, and the one in the south is called Shangtian Township. They are all under the jurisdiction of Liuyang County. The county governor of Liuyang County is located in Liuyang County. The specific jurisdiction of Liuyang County is even larger, extending eastward to the Ling tribe in the swamp, bordering Ruyang County to the west, controlling the Babao Mountain, copper mining area to the north, and the south is still under development, and there is no specific jurisdiction. In the future, our county seats will be established in these places to achieve actual control. You marked the names on the map on the blackboard and talked about the specific administrative jurisdictions of these administrative units. Shuda also looked at the map in shock. Hanyang County, Ruyang County, Liuyang County, and a county-level administrative unit, Fuma Pass, and Linz and Shangtian, 2 townships in Liuyang County. The chief just drew a few strokes, and the Han tribe was already so big. Looking at the map on the blackboard and listening to your description, Shuda felt his heart surge with excitement. It had been almost 2 years since the Haishu tribe joined the Han tribe. Although the time was not very long, the development of the Han tribe was huge. From a cave with a wall to the first city, then the second and third cities appeared this year. In a short time, the 4th and 5th cities were also about to appear. The radiation range of the entire Han tribe was also getting larger and larger, and there were abundant resources within the territory. According to the current speed, it wouldn't take 2 years for the entire iron mining area in the north to become the back garden of the Han tribe. You in front of him made Shuda increasingly feel how correct the decision he made at the beginning was. In the future, he must follow your footsteps closely. Only by following such a chief could he achieve greater achievements. If the Han tribe had dozens of cities and hundreds of thousands of people, would the Han tribe still be afraid of cannibals? Wouldn't they trample their hills flat? No matter how powerful the cannibals were, if tens of thousands of soldiers rushed up with steel knives, it was estimated that no matter how many cannibals there were, they would only be fertilizer for the farmland. Chief, should I do something then? Why don't you assign me some tasks? I finally came back. If I go back to New City, no. If I go back to guard Liuyang County, it will be so boring. You said before, there are tens of thousands of people. Liuyang County, which blind person would dare to attack us? It's useless for me to stay there. Shuda immediately begged you for work with a bitter face. You want to cause trouble so much? All right then. Hanyang City will harvest rice in a few days. After this busy farming season, I will give you some manpower. You go choose a place to reclaim wasteland and clear the land. Whether you go to Fuma Pass or Ruyang County, you decide. You tapped on the 2 places on the blackboard and asked, Go to Ruyang County. Our Haishu tribe used to be there. Now the location of Ruyang County is not far from the former residence of the Li tribe. I am quite familiar with that place. I guarantee I will choose a good place for the chief. Shuda thought for a moment, immediately chose the most familiar Ruyang County, and then patted his chest, and promised you. All right then, I'll tell you the site selection requirements for Ruyang County. First, it must be close to the river. No matter what, Ruyang County also needs to grow grain. It is more convenient to irrigate if it is closer to the water source. Second, the area of this city will be relatively large, and the length and width must be no less than 1,000 meters. Third, Chief, how can Ruyang County be so big? Isn't it too big? Before you could finish, Shuda asked in surprise. The county seat of Hanyang County was only 400 meters long and wide, and Ruyang County was directly 1,000 meters at the base. The area was directly more than 4 times larger. Even if it was a large county, it couldn't be so different. But you look serious and didn't intend to change it at all. It must be that big. I now regret making Hanyang City too small. A county seat and the head of a county can only accommodate less than 5,000 people. Don't you think it's very small? And the residential area of the households in the city is also too small. There is no place to raise 2 pigs and a few sheep at home. Except for the house, the entire yard is only less than 6 meters wide. What can it be used for? Also, I won't say how wide the streets are. The school, such an important place, doesn't even have a separate courtyard, and it has to be squeezed together with the county government office. Is this a place for learning? That county government office building is even more cramped. So many departments have to be crowded together. It's just that we have a small population now, and there aren't that many things to do, so we can still make do together. If we build a few more county seats, I think even daily office work will be difficult. This is the wrong estimate I made when I first built the city, due to lack of experience, so I must not make the same mistake again. Hasn't the residential area of Liuyang County been expanded to 16.6 meters in length and width? It's more than twice as large as Hanyang City. You've lived there for so long. Which one do you think is more convenient? You listed the wrong decisions of Hanyang City one by one, showing regret. If there weren't so many things to do now, and all places were busy with construction, he would have wanted to expand Hanyang City again. Oh, if that's the case, it's definitely more comfortable to live in the houses in Ruyang County. The yard is so spacious. I see that those model workers raise several livestock and still have so much space. I understand what the chief means. We should make the newly built cities as large as possible in the future, right? But Chief, after these few things, I always feel that you want every household to raise pigs and sheep. Shuda nodded in agreement. What, is that bad? If all the people of the Han tribe have land to cultivate, have food to eat, and can save some food to feed 2 pigs, wouldn't such a life be good? I know it's difficult to achieve, but we just need to work towards this goal, right? Huh? By the way, what are you talking about? I'm giving you a site selection task. You suddenly came to your senses and pointed at Shuda. Yes, the chief is talking about the task, hey. Shuda immediately stood up straight and replied with a smile. Well, as I said just now, first it must be close to the river, preferably no more than 2 kilometers, because Ruyang County also needs to dig a moat, and this artificial river will be used to transform the paddy fields, similar to Hanyang City. It's too much work to dig if it's too far away. Second, the length and width must not be less than 1,000 meters. There is nothing to say about this. It can only be larger, not smaller. Third, the surrounding terrain. You must choose a slightly higher place to build the city. Don't let the river flood and submerge the city. Fourth, it must be flat enough, at least easy to level, preferably open land, so that it is convenient for us to reclaim farmland. In addition, the surrounding open space must also be large, to ensure that the grain output of the surrounding land can meet the needs of the entire city. I don't want to have to transfer grain from other places, which would waste more manpower and material resources. The last point, and the most important, is to be close to the forest. The surrounding forest must provide building materials and fuel supply for the entire city. Corn stalks can be used for cooking, but there must be wood for building houses. You listed several important conditions for the selection of a city site. This was simply looking for a needle in a haystack. If you still couldn't find a place to build a city, It was estimated that Shuda would have no growth value. Yes, Shuda guarantees to complete the task assigned by the chief. Shuda immediately cupped his hands and saluted. This guy accepted the task very readily, without considering the difficulty at all. It seemed that he was really bored in Luoyang County. Well, let's just let him go out for a breath of fresh air. Anyway, it was not far from Hanyang City, and support could be called immediately if there was something. All right then, you go make preparations. I'll go see how the arrangements are going with the Sang tribe. You nodded, and left Shuda behind. You still wanted to see the surprised face of that old woman Sang Q. Ahem, of course you were not that bored. The main thing was to get the silk reeling machine out. This thing was quite different from the spinning machines for cotton, linen, and wool, and special equipment was required. Having sent Rat off to get the students settled into their self-study, you went to the weaving workshop. The weaving workshop covered a considerable area, consisting of 2 workshops made by converting 2 adjacent warehouses. One was used for roving and spinning, the other specifically for weaving. They could produce over 500 meters of cloth, 2 meters wide every day, an enormous output. When you arrived, your mother-in-law, Chief Shang, was still there inspecting the workshops, occasionally offering pointers on operating techniques to the women of the weaving workshop. You didn't see Xiaodi. She was probably off researching dyeing techniques again. Xiaodai was no longer preoccupied with weaving techniques. Your 2 mechanical iterations had already elevated the entire textile industry to the pinnacle of manual craftsmanship. There was really nothing left to improve. Further optimization would require improvements to the power source, but that was beyond what could be done at present. So Xiaodi had shifted her research focus from textiles to printing and dyeing. Although closely related, these were essentially 2 different industries. No matter which one you chose, the complexities were profound. It's impossible for one person to completely master both industries in a single lifetime. In the spinning workshop, the spinning wheels whirred ceaselessly. The latest generation of multi-spindle spinning machines continuously turned wool into yarn, supplying the weaving workshop. This workshop kept at most a 2-day supply. A halt of even 1 or 2 days would cause the adjacent weaving workshop to shut down due to lack of raw materials. Entering the workshop, you saw from a distance a group of women dressed in sheer silk garments, all gathered around a roving machine in the center. Most were covering their mouths, with expressions as if they'd seen a ghost, yet they all restrained themselves from crying out. They feared being looked down upon by the elders of the Han tribe, and also didn't want to disturb the female workers. They simply stood silently to the side, observing. A scene in itself, a scene of the beauty born of labor. A female worker sat at the roving machine, her feet continuously pedaling to drive the machine. Her hands constantly picked up cleaned and dried wool from 2 large baskets beside her, quickly tearing the wool into small pieces and feeding them into the rollers. Tufts of white wool were instantly devoured by the rollers, torn, carded, spread out, and finally evenly laid into a thin layer. This layer was then cut into strips of roving by the output divider, quickly and with excellent quality. The visitors from the Sang tribe were also greatly shocked. The Han tribe was full of wonders. Even in Luoyang County, they had never seen such exquisite and magical machines that could make the complex and cumbersome process of textile production so fast and efficient. After lingering at the roving machine for a while, the group moved on to a place where the rovings were joined. There were the fewest machines here, but every roving had to be processed. A needle wheel covered with steel pins pierced the short rovings together, connecting them into an extremely long roving, which was then sent to the spinning machine to be spun into yarn. The group then moved on to the spinning machines. These spinning machines were modified versions of the spinning jenny. The worker only needed to sit and pedal, pulling a rope to operate the tension bar, and could spin 20 spindles of yarn at once, incredibly fast. Were all these machines created? By the leader of your Han tribe, Sang Chu asked the student guiding their tour. Yes, the leader has created many machines, not just these for weaving cloth. The water-powered mill outside the city can easily grind even hard iron ore into powder, and it doesn't require manpower or livestock. As long as there is a continuous flow of river water, it can drive the huge stones on the millstone to rotate continuously. And there are the windmills, too. Those are even more magical. They use the invisible wind as power to drive many machines. The gang saws for sawing planks, the forging hammers for blacksmithing, the stone mills for the oil workshop. All can be driven by windmills. Our leader is very powerful. He is the Son of Heaven. Do you know what the Son of Heaven is? It means the Son of the Sky, a divine person who can borrow the power of heaven and earth. As long as the leader is here, the Han tribe will definitely become stronger and stronger. The student assigned by you said so. Sang Chu also nodded with admiration. She hadn't realized. She had already thought the leader of the Han tribe was very powerful, but after visiting these machines, she felt she had underestimated the young leader. Let's go. That's all there is to see in the spinning workshop. To see how these thin threads are turned into the cloth we wear, you have to go to the weaving workshop next door. Thank you for your guidance. Sang Chu replied politely. She had no choice. The Han tribe was too impressive. This guide looked presentable, spoke eloquently, and knew the various production techniques of the Han tribe like the back of his hand. Who knew what kind of person he was? It was best to be flattering since she was the newcomer. The group then moved on to the adjacent weaving workshop. Even you following behind them went unnoticed. The black technology here was too captivating. They were completely absorbed, with no time to notice who else was around. Just at the entrance of the weaving workshop, they heard a sound completely different from the spinning workshop. While the previous workshop had the whirring of spinning wheels, this one had a clattering sound. The clatter of dozens of machines mixed together sounded like tens of thousands of prairie dogs gnawing on wood. The sound of the pedals and the shuttles beating the weft. The first impression of the rows of looms was one of complexity and chaos. Someone with a fear of crowded spaces might even feel dizzy because there were so many threads. But upon closer inspection, the numerous yarns were all arranged in perfect order, all running along their respective paths, finally transforming into strong and durable cloth in the skillful hands of the female weavers, bringing countless valuable livestock to the entire Han tribe. The rollers fed in the yarn. The pedals controlled the lifting of the heddles. The warp threads were divided. The flying shuttle was pulled with one hand. The other hand swung the beater to tighten the cloth, and then the pedals were pressed again. The shuttle pulled. The beater swung. The 3 steps were repeated again and again, accumulating little by little, interweaving the thin yarns into strong woolen cloth. The women of the Sang clan were all stunned, unconsciously immersed in this monotonous cycle, unaware that you, the great leader of the Han tribe, had walked up beside them. Chief Sang, if silk were turned into these threads, do you think it could be used for weaving? You suddenly asked, standing to the side. Leader. Sang Chu, hearing someone ask a question, thought it sounded familiar. She turned her head and saw it was the leader and was startled. The leader, I think it should be possible. Sang Chu immediately replied after she recovered. Yes, I think so too. Weaving with silk isn't much different from wool or linen. It's just the spinning method that differs. One is dry spinning, the other requires wet spinning. I already have some ideas about the specific operation. How about this? There are still a few days before the rice harvest. Why don't I have Rat take you to the chestnut forest to collect some wild tussa silk cocoons? The round trip will take about 4 days. I'll use this time to make a silk spinning machine. When you get back, you can try it out. You propose this to Sang Chu. The leader can make a machine for spinning silk so quickly? Sang Chu said incredulously. This thing isn't complicated. We also have discarded foot pedal spinning machines. We can just take one and modify it. You shrugged, indicating it was no big deal. In that case, we are willing to go to the forest the leader mentioned to collect cocoons. If we can really turn cocoons into cloth like this, it will surely be the most beautiful cloth in the world, Sang Chu also said excitedly. After seeing the Han tribe's weaving workshop, she was eager to turn the familiar silk into cloth. This way, They would also be considered useful to the tribe, and in the future they could strive for more benefits for the people of their clan. In addition, she could also strive for more say. Maybe she could even be on par with Shang in the future. One must always strive for things. There are so many clans in the Han tribe. If she wasn't proactive, when would it be her turn? All right, then you choose some of your people to go with you. I will send Rat as your guide and to be responsible for the safety of the team. Be quick, and don't delay the grain harvest in a few days. You nodded and instructed. Yes, leader. Rest assured. Sang Qiu accepted the task and immediately took her leave. You didn't stay long either, instead finding someone to move a discarded foot pedal spinning machine to the carpentry workshop to carry out your modification plan. The process of spinning silk thread is not difficult or complicated. The only difference from wool and linen fibers is that it requires water, hot water. Sericulture and silk weaving have a very long history in our country. There are also many idioms about silk, such as spinning a cocoon around oneself and drawing silk from cocoons, which are all familiar and commonly used idioms. The most important process in silk spinning is actually contained in these 4 words: drawing silk from cocoons. The cocoon contains the silkworm pupa, which is the dormant form of the silkworm moth before metamorphosis. Once the silkworm wraps itself up and becomes a pupa, it will grow into a mature form within a few days, turn into a moth, bite through the cocoon and emerge. But in order to obtain a complete cocoon, it is necessary to kill the pupa inside before it completes its metamorphosis. There are 2 common methods for killing silkworm pupae. One is to boil the cocoons in a pot, using boiling water to kill the pupae inside and prevent them from metamorphosing. The other is very suitable for large-scale processing, using a high-temperature drying room to dry and bake the pupae inside the cocoons, which can also prevent them from metamorphosing. After this step to obtain complete cocoons, the next step is to draw the silk from the cocoons. This process is also called sow silk. First, put the cocoons in a pot with water and boil them, but not to a full boil. The water temperature should be comfortable to the touch, basically the temperature of a hot bath. The purpose of this process is mainly to dissolve the sericin in the cocoon with hot water. Unlike spider silk, silk itself is not sticky. Therefore, when the silkworm spins silk to form a cocoon, it also attaches a layer of sericin to it. The resulting cocoon is very strong and hard, but after soaking in hot water, the sericin dissolves, and the silk can then be drawn from the cocoon. When the silkworm spins its cocoon, it first crawls to the predetermined location, then uses silk to weave a base for the cocoon, shaped like a hammock. After this, the silkworm crawls onto the hammock, curls its body into a U-shape, and then spins silk to wrap itself up. Therefore, on the outside of the cocoon, there is also a layer of connected, messy silk, the hammock. So before drawing the silk from the cocoon, this unusable hammock layer must be torn off. After this step, basically only a bare cocoon remains. This cocoon is composed entirely of a single silk thread, 500 to 1500 meters long, with only 2 ends, one inside the cocoon and one outside. So at this time there is another important step, lixu, or clearing the threads, which is actually finding the end of the thread outside the cocoon. This step is not difficult because the silk thread is only 1/10 the thickness of a human hair. Therefore, when spinning silk, 7 or 8 cocoons are usually grouped together, and 8 silk threads are combined into 1 silk yarn for weaving. Therefore, when lixu is performed, just put 8 cocoons together in a basin of water and stir them quickly with chopsticks. This will cause the end of each cocoon's thread to automatically wrap around the chopsticks. Then, simply pinch the 8 ends together and thread them onto the spinning machine, and you can start spinning. In summary, the process of reeling silk is not complicated, and many of the manual steps cannot be replaced by machines. The only thing that can really be done by a machine is, after the threads are cleared, to tie the several ends to the spindle and then use a foot-powered flywheel to provide power and wind up the silk. Therefore, for this reeling machine, the front part of the original foot-pedal spinning machine can be directly dismantled, leaving only the flywheel, the power pedal, and the crankshaft connecting rod. Then a few crossbar supports for guiding the silk threads can be added. And finally, a basin of hot water for the cocoons can be added at the front. In addition, in order to improve work efficiency and allow this machine to spin multiple threads simultaneously, this machine needs to be wide enough. Your initial idea is to spin 4 threads at the same time. This requires a basin that is not very wide, but long enough. Also, to prevent each group of cocoons from interfering with each other, the basin can be made with internal partitions, similar to a hot pot, to separate each group of cocoons into a separate area. This can also prevent several groups of cocoons from accidentally getting tangled together. You wrote down these requirements and dimensions, and immediately handed them over to Mutun, the deputy of the carpentry workshop, to handle. Mutun is even less talkative and is suitable for researching technology. Mutong, on the other hand, is suitable for management, assigning tasks to other carpenters, allocating work, and has strong organizational skills. These two, one managing internal affairs and the other external affairs, manage the carpentry workshop of Hanyang City in an orderly manner, and also make you, the leader, very comfortable. It should be ready in 2 days. You thought? The design and modification of the reeling machine progressed smoothly, but on the other side, the Sang clan preparing to collect Tusa silk cocoons, and Rat and the others preparing the site selection for Ruyang County, were not so smooth. The original Chestnut tribe had been forcefully annexed by the Han tribe, and the Chestnut tribe's residents had long been abandoned. Except for sending people there every year to collect chestnuts, the Han tribe rarely went to that place anymore. But in this half-year gap, no one knew when another tribe had come to this place, occupied the abandoned Chestnut tribe residents under the Han tribe's nose, and settled down here. On the second day after you made the arrangements, just as the first glimmer of dawn appeared on the horizon, the group led by Rat, consisting of 20 male tribesmen, 50 people from the Sang clan, 2 ox carts and several horses, left the city early and headed for the other side of the river. Following the usual custom for leaving the city, everyone was supposed to carry weapons, even if it was just an ordinary spear. However, this group was going to do work, and they didn't expect to encounter any enemies, only to be wary of wild animals at most, so they didn't bring many weapons. If one had to mention weapons, perhaps the long-handled axes for cutting trees and the iron shovels for digging could be counted. Other than that, there were the longbows carried by the men led by Rat, a small number of spears, and Rat's own steel knife. The group took the same animal trail they had used before, paths worn by animals frequenting the forest. The paths that the Chestnut tribe warriors used for hunting had long been yin-mi by the new growth of grass and trees over the past year. The group was not entirely on foot this time, and because they had 2 ox carts, their progress was slow, with most of the time wasted on clearing the path, and at the original residence of the Chestnut tribe, it was now occupied by another tribe that had migrated here. This tribe had many people, as many as 400 or 500. They had built new dwellings at the abandoned residence of the original Chestnut tribe. Although the dwellings were still tents made of branches, they had plastered a layer of mud on the outside, which greatly enhanced the warmth and stability of the houses. However, this was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that this tribe had learned to cultivate crops. This was definitely a remarkable achievement. As long as humans mastered planting techniques, and barring natural disasters, food could be guaranteed, and growth and development were just around the corner. That morning, it was another sunny day. The men of the tribe went out hunting as usual, and they were also responsible for patrolling the surrounding area. Exploration was necessary. They had been here for less than half a year, and they were still not very familiar with the surrounding area. They only knew that there was a forest here that produced a lot of nuts. that it was close to a water source, and that there was open land. They had even discovered an abandoned settlement, so they settled here. The women of the tribe took wooden forks and spears to the river to try to catch some small animals, and they would also use the forks to spear fish in the river. But these were not the staple food of their tribe. They mainly relied on the crops they planted as their food. It was a kind of plant with vines growing on the ground and tuberous roots growing underground. The main edible part was the roots buried in the soil. These root fruits had a brownish skin and were white inside, sometimes with small light brown spots, looking like dragon fruit, but they were not. Each one was the size of an adult's fist, rich in starch, and could be directly roasted in a fire and eaten. This thing was generally not cut open, because after cutting, the skin that contacted the flesh would be irritated and itchy. Only by placing the hand near the campfire and roasting it could the very itchy feeling be stopped. The people of this tribe called this crop yew, so their tribe was called the yew tribe. Yew is actually taro, similar to potatoes, and yam is also its relative. It has a very long history of cultivation in our country. It should have been widely known during the Zhou dynasty, and by the spring and autumn period, it had become an important food crop. You had eaten it once, but you didn't like it very much. But there were still many people who loved it. This was mainly a matter of personal taste. Also, taro is not a modern staple food, so it is not widely grown. You had little knowledge about it in your mind, but even if you didn't know much, having more food was better than having less. Not to mention anything else, this kind of vine plant was very popular in the Han tribe because pigs especially loved to eat this plant. The Han tribe was not yet wealthy enough to feed pigs with corn, so for now they could only use these vine plants as the main source of pig feed. But all this was a matter for later. The Yew tribe had been here for half a year, busy reclaiming land, planting taro, and building the tribe's settlement. Although they also sent people out to hunt, they still couldn't escape the activity cycle of the primitive era. That is, they could only go out until noon at most, and had to return to the tribe before dark. In addition, the Han tribe had not been here for a long time, so the two sides had never encountered each other. The Han tribe also had no way of knowing that there were taro here, but now, today, this opportunity to meet had finally arrived. By the morning of the second day, Rat's group was very close to the Yew tribe's camp, but they had not yet set off, and were gathered together eating breakfast. Two large iron pots buried in the ground were cooking salted meat porridge. The aroma of the porridge wafted a long distance in the forest, but it was this unusual aroma that attracted the hunting team of the Yew tribe. "Do you smell anything?" A small team leader asked his team members to confirm. "Yes, it smells like smoke from a fire." "I smell it too. Not only the smell of smoke, but also the smell of food. But I don't know what kind of food it is. It doesn't smell like roasted meat, but it smells very good." "Smells good, my ass. All you think about is food. Shouldn't you first pay attention to who lit the fire? Everyone pay attention. There may be someone over there making food. We don't know if they are a friendly tribe, so be careful when you go over there. If the other party has no ill intentions, then we should not attack first. We have been here for more than half a year, but we haven't found out if there are any other tribes nearby, and we don't know if there is any salt rock here." The salt rock we brought with us is almost used up, so this may be an opportunity. If the other party has salt rock, we can find a way to exchange for some. The team leader said to the dozen or so team members below. "Yes, Captain." The men all nodded in understanding, and then carefully followed their captain towards the place where the smell of smoke was coming from. They were not very far away. A dozen people were dressed in suits of leaves and animal skins, almost indistinguishable from jungle camouflage. After walking for more than 10 minutes, the smells became more and more obvious, and some fragmented voices also reached their ears, which made the Yew tribe's hunting team even more vigilant. The group exchanged glances, and most of them stayed behind, leaving only 2 or 3 people to continue to carefully move forward. They were excellent hunters, and they usually used this method to drive and surround, or even stealthily approach prey, so the few people were very confident and did not think they would be discovered. However, at this moment, they only heard a light jung sound from above. Their heads, followed by a su as a thin, short wooden spear flew down from a nearby tree, calmly passing in front of the U tribe hunting team leader's eyes, and then duo sticking into the trunk of a nearby tree, followed by a sharp whistle, piercing the surroundings. Oh no, we've been discovered. The leader of the team thought to himself that something was wrong. How could he have forgotten? The people in front of him who could light fires and cook were not wild animals. They were their own kind. They were humans. And the skill that people of this era were best at was probably climbing trees. How could he have forgotten to be careful above? The sound of the warning whistle also alerted the Han tribe people who were cooking. The first to react were the people Rat had brought. They immediately picked up their bows and weapons and pointed them at the place where the sound came from. Who? Is it? Come out! The one on guard in the tree, are they people or beasts? How many? Someone from the Han tribe immediately shouted. They are people. There are 3 below the tree, not from our tribe, wearing animal skins. I have them in my sights. They are not moving. It looks like they are scouts. There should be more people behind. Come over and take a look. They haven't run, they should be looking for us specifically. A voice immediately came from the canopy of the tree next to the U tribe captain. Rat heard the report from the hidden sentry, also put down the bowl he was about to eat from, and then led a group of warriors to the front. The 3 people from the U tribe no longer hid after being discovered, and simply stood up openly. Anyway, there were only 3 of them. Leaving the others behind was originally to prevent the possibility of being discovered as a whole. This way, even if a fight really broke out, whether it was retreating or calling for support, more people would survive in the end. This was also the experience that most tribes had learned from bloody lessons. Since there was no direct conflict between the 2 sides, the first meeting was relatively friendly. Well, as long as no one was injured, it could be considered friendly. Who are you? Why did you sneak into our camp? Rat first had the warriors surround the 3 men, and then asked them with hand gestures. We tribe here, many people. Who are you? Are you a nearby tribe? What are you doing here? Why haven't you come here before? The U tribe's small captain also replied with hand gestures. But the 3 of them were very surprised by the attire of these people. They had never seen clothes like this before. They definitely weren't animal skins. The shoes on their feet were also very exquisite, looking like they were made of animal skins. The weapons they held were even more unheard of. A long wooden handle, some with a grayish-white spearhead, some with grayish-black round and flat pieces, looked particularly thin and were definitely not made of stone or bone. They had never even seen the material, especially the man leading the other side, who also wore a head ornament with a silver-white luster, looked extraordinary. There seemed to be a totem on it that looked like a rat, but it looked a bit comical, and it also wore a feathered crown like a human, holding a spear in its claws, which was extremely funny. Hearing the other party say this, Rat's expression became a little strange. Their black rat tribe had been living nearby for so many years. How could they not be clear about what tribes were around? Apart from the Chestnut tribe and the Han tribe, there were no other tribes nearby, but now they were all members of the Han tribe. Where did these people come from? He didn't know. But looking at the other party's cautious look, they even warned him that their tribe was not far away and there were many people. Could there be more than the Han tribe? The other party's words had no deterrent effect, but instead made the Han tribe warriors laugh. Our tribe is also not far from here, just on the other side of the river. We came here to go to the forest over there to collect fruit. If you really are nearby, you should also know that forest, right? Rat explained with hand gestures, and also tested the other party. You are on the other side of the river. Then how did you get here? And how do you know that there are fruits in the forest over there? The U tribe's small captain continued to ask. This river isn't very wide, isn't it easy to cross? As for how we know about that forest, it's because we go there every year to collect fruit. Oh, right. You guys couldn't have rebuilt our old abandoned camp, could you? Are you now living in that abandoned camp? Rat suddenly remembered something and asked them in realization. What? That was your abandoned camp before? Are you the tribe that migrated from there? But if that's the case, then even if you abandoned that forest yourselves, I won't let you go there to collect fruit. That place now belongs to our U tribe. If you want the fruit there, you have to exchange something for it. By the way, do you have any salt rock this thing? If you have salt rock, I can talk to the leader and let you collect some fruit. Your tribe's small captain, while declaring the ownership of the forest, took out a small piece of translucent white stone from the animal skin skirt around his waist. Rat was very familiar with this thing. Wasn't this just unprocessed natural salt rock? Were there other salt mines nearby? This thing, we actually do have it, but ours is cleaner, called white salt. If you want to exchange, let your leader talk. To me, our Han tribe has plenty of white salt. Also, there was something I didn't make clear just now. The previous tribe that lived in your settlement was destroyed by us because they wouldn't let us collect fruit. Now most of their people have joined our tribe. So, no matter how big your tribe is, how many people you have, dare to stop us from entering the forest. Hey, joke. If you have anything to say, let your leader talk to me. You are not qualified. Come, take this and bring it back to your leader. If he wants white salt, tell him to come and talk to me himself. Rat waved to a warrior beside him. Immediately, a Han tribesman took out a small bag of white salt, used for travel rations, and handed it to Rat, who then tossed it to the U tribe's squad leader. The squad leader took the cloth bag, opened it, and immediately saw the pure white granules filling it. After a quick look, he didn't hesitate to pinch a bit and taste it. This wasn't because he was careless, but because the Han tribe had a clear advantage. More than 20 people surrounded the three of them. Whether to kill or skin them was just a word away. Was there any need to use poison to kill him? Besides, such exquisite and pure poison would probably be difficult to make. Would the other party go to the trouble of making such a thing specifically to harm people? Sure enough, the moment the white salt entered his mouth, he knew it was good stuff. The pure, unadulterated salty taste was clearly much better than salt rock. This was the best of salt rocks. This, salt rock, do you have a lot? The U tribe's squad leader asked nervously. The entire tribe had migrated here for more than half a year, and they had finally found a tribe with salt rock. At this moment, the squad leader, having tasted such high-quality white salt, how could he not be excited and nervous? This was a key issue related to whether their tribe could take root here for a long time. A lot. Of course, we have a lot. No matter how many people your tribe has, how much white salt you need, we can supply it, but your leader must talk to me. Rat continued to emphasize his request. Having joined the Han tribe for more than a year, he now knew the power of this white salt. As long as he could control the supply of white salt to a tribe, it was like holding their lifeline. At that time, whatever they wanted them to do would be up to the Han tribe. This tribe could really be said to have walked right into a trap. This was a meal delivered to their doorstep. It would be a waste not to eat it. Since they were already living in the territory of Ruyang County, they might as well use the people of this tribe directly for the construction of the new city. It would be a waste not to use free labor. Having made up his mind, Rat became even more enthusiastic about meeting their leader. If he could directly subdue this tribe this time, it would definitely be a great achievement. At that time, he wouldn't have to lower his head in front of that boy Yu Fu. That guy had done something big this year, and the batch of grain seeds he brought back had made the leader laugh in his dreams. He didn't know what was so special about them. If he could achieve a merit this time, no matter how big or small, at least this year wouldn't be wasted. Meeting our leader is not impossible. But who are you? Are you the leader of your tribe? What is your tribe called? The U tribe's squad leader continued to probe. We are people of the Han tribe. I am just a leader in charge of warriors in the Han tribe. Our great leader is busy. He doesn't have time to run around here with us to collect fruit. Rat raised his eyebrows and said rather proudly. The U tribe's captain looked at the so-called Han tribe warriors around him and their weapons. After thinking for a moment, he immediately made a decision. All right, I can take you to see our leader, but you can only leave me behind. I will lead you there, and let these two go back to report to the leader, and then bring the leader to meet. Rat laughed when he heard this. Wasn't this just fearing that he would find out the location of their lair, or fearing that he would directly lead these dozens of people to their settlement and do something bad? However, in order to successfully meet with the other party, Rat did not refuse. He was very familiar with the terrain in this area, and this guy couldn't trick him. Agreeing to their conditions could also gain some trust from the other party, which would be more conducive to the outcome of the negotiations. Thinking of this, Rat nodded. All right, let your two men go first. Later, you will take us to the meeting place. Let me make it clear, don't run too far. We still have tasks assigned by the leader, and we don't have time to run around with you. The U-Tribe's squad leader also nodded in agreement, and then weighed the bag of salt in his hand and asked, "Can they take this back? Otherwise, I'm afraid the leader won't believe it." Take it. Take it. It's just a little bit of white salt." "Hurry up. Don't waste our time," Rat urged impatiently. The U-Tribe's squad leader was so happy that his eyes almost smiled out loud when he saw Rat agree. He quickly told his two subordinates a few words, telling them what to say when they saw the leader and where to meet later, and then let the two men go back first. After the two left, the squad leader looked at Rat again and asked, "This leader, when are we leaving?" No rush, no rush. Wait until our people finish eating. You guys came at a really bad time. You delayed my meal." Rat complained a few words and then let everyone go back to eat. A group of people also took their bowls and lined up to get meat, porridge from the pot. The U-Tribe's squad leader had no choice but to find a place to sit down out of the way, resting and observing these Han tribe people. But as he watched, he noticed something strange. That was the source of the food aroma. No wonder it didn't smell like barbecue. It turned out that they were putting food and water in a container similar to a stone basin and cooking it. What was even more exaggerated was that each of these people had a very exquisite container. The material was definitely not stone, just like the container they used to cook food. He didn't recognize any of them. My God, is their tribe so wealthy? Every one of them has such a precious container. The squad leader thought to himself in shock. "Hey, brother, would you like a bowl? Try our Han tribe's meat porridge?" Just as the squad leader was continuing to stare blankly, Rat had already walked over with 2 large bowls of porridge. "Ah, come, a bowl?" The squad leader was stunned. Although he didn't know what "come a bowl" meant, he could still see that Rat wanted to share food with him. After thinking for a moment, he nodded. Taking a look at what these people were eating, and seeing their containers, was also a rare opportunity. "Hold it steady, be careful, it's hot. Here, these are chopsticks." Rat handed him the bowl first, and then placed a pair of chopsticks on the edge of the bowl. The squad leader gently took the white bowl and looked at it, but he couldn't find any traces of grinding. The entire container was so smooth that it could be used as a mirror. He really couldn't understand how it was made. If he couldn't figure it out, he wouldn't think about it for now. The method of making this kind of container was definitely a secret of the other party's tribe, and he couldn't just ask. He might as well try their food first. But before that, he also took out a lump of something wrapped in leaves from a bag, made of animal skin that he carried with him. He peeled off the layers of leaves, revealing something that had been burned black. The squad leader broke it in half, immediately revealing the white food inside. It was the lunch that they're hunting. Team carried with them when they went out in the morning, and it was also a short-term dry ration. "Eat. This is from our tribe." Half of a roasted ewe was handed to Rat. Rat was slurping the porridge from his bowl, and out of the corner of his eye, he saw the other party handing him a piece of white food, which also aroused some interest. He had never seen this thing before, and he didn't know what kind of tree it was from. Rat was not a polite person. Without saying a word, he took it, and then looked at the U-Tribe's squad leader, asking with his eyes, "How do you eat this?" The squad leader also received the other party's signal, peeled off the charred skin with his hand, and directly took a bite of the white flesh. Rat saw this and followed suit, peeling off the skin and stuffing it into his mouth. He was immediately choked so badly that he almost couldn't catch his breath. This fruit did not have the overflowing juice as imagined. It tasted dry and floury, but it was exceptionally filling. It just didn't have much taste. For a guy like Rat, who was not short of oil, salt, and meat, it was really bland and tasteless. But it was a good choice to use as a staple food like rice. He just didn't know whether this thing grew on trees or on the ground, whether it was possible to plant it, how the yield was. "What's this thing called?" Rat swallowed the you-so and asked curiously. Mountain. We found it in a mountain." The squad leader also took a sip of the meat porridge, the hot tears welling up to the corners of his eyes, but still answered happily. "This of yours, good, salty, fragrant, just hot.